Today I'm going to be talking about malaria. Now, before I get started, I'd like to answer some questions about malaria. Now, the first question is, what is malaria? Now, malaria is neither a virus or a bacteria. It's a protist, which is basically a section that the scientists just got lazy to make, so they just put it just called it others. Now, malaria is a very serious disease, but a very and deadly, but a very common one. It affects in the most tropical areas, so that includes most of Africa. So how do we get to malaria? Malaria is typically transmitted through bite of a mosquito. So when a mosquito bites you and is infected with the malaria parasite, it will you will get malaria. Now it's transmitted in other ways. For example, if someone has malaria and gives you an organ, a transfusion, or shares a needle or a syringe with you. Now, another question is, how does malaria affect your body? So, basically, a very short story is when the mosquito bites you, the parasite goes to the liver, and once inside the liver, it matures, which then goes to the bloodstream and begins to infect red blood cells. Within 48 to 72 hours, the parasites inside the red blood cell multiply, and then bursts. Those will typically cause a lot of symptoms that include shaking, chills that can range from moderate to severe, high fevers, profound sweating, headaches, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, muscle pain, convulsions, coma, and bloody stool. People infected with another type of malaria have some added symptoms, which include anemia caused by the destruction of a red blood cell, extreme tiredness, the delirium, unconsciousness, convulsions, and coma, kidney failure, pulmonary endemia, which is a very serious condition where the fluids build up in the lungs, which can lead to severe breathing problems. So how does your body fight back? So typically, if you get caught with malaria, because they do this thing where they take some of your blood and they see if there's any malaria inside of the red blood cell, they'll typically give you IV medicine, which is medicine that is directly given from the bloodstream. You can also be given anti-malaria drugs given by the mouth injections or intravenous into the veins, like I was talking about. You'll typically, so other doctors will typically watch out for signs of dehydration, convulsions, and anemia. And if something like that happens, they'll give other types of medicine, which will help the body fight back the disease. Now that we're done with this introduction, I'm gonna be going through the story of malaria. So, mosquito, a pretty harmless animal that can't really kill anything or anyone, but the thing that can kill you is the thing that's inside of it, malaria. About every 30 seconds, someone gets infected with malaria, and every 1 minute, someone dies from it. In 2015 alone, there were 50 million cases of malaria, and about 500,000 died. As you can see, malaria is a devastating disease. After all, it's the third biggest killer in human history, just above the Black Plague. Malaria is found in about 100 countries, and most of them found in Africa. About 93% of all malaria deaths are in Africa. Plasmodium is a very weird microorganism, only having a mitochondria, a nucleus, an epidemical complex, and a surface coat. That is typically just basically a cell membrane. So, malaria infects people when a mosquito bites you. Inside of its salivary glands, the plasmodium is awaiting to get released into the bloodstream. When the needle penetrates your skin, the plasmodium gets released. Once inside the once inside the bloodstream, it's extremely vulnerable, so it tries to stay hidden away from the white blood cells, or otherwise known as your immune system. It tries to go from your circulatory system to your liver. It moves around by wiggling because of its flagella-like shape. Once next to the liver, Plasmodium has the same receptors as the liver cells, so it thinks it's just a piece of glucose oxygen, or water, and it lets it in. Once inside, it eats the cell fluids that includes nutrients, oxygen, water, and glucose, and matures into merozoites, a cell that is specialized at attacking red blood cells. They mature in a sort of nuclear binary fusion inside the cell, and then after the liver cannot hold it anymore, it finally starts to mitosis, and the cells fully mature. Then it releases a special enzyme that explodes the cell, and it steals a bit of the cell membrane, and it uses as camo, so it doesn't get killed by your immune system. Then it goes, then it goes to the veins, where it attacks the red blood cells. When it was maturing, it changed the receptors from the liver receptors to the red blood cell receptors to let them in. Once inside, it releases a special protein to reset the cell, and then the merozoites reproduce in the same way that the plasmodium did inside the liver. The first signs that a red blood cell is infected is a blue ring around the red blood cell. After 2 days, the ring disappears, and a red blood cell changes shape into a circle with a lot of bumps in it. After that, it explodes out of the red blood cell, and it heads straight to the next red blood cell. While it's traveling, it's extremely vulnerable to get killed by your immune system. Red blood cells have a lot of toxins, so it creates a powerful immune response. And symptoms are fevers, which is a way that your body's trying to kill the parasite by boiling it alive, being always tired from all the energy that your body is using to fight back, muscle cramps, vomiting, and diarrhea. The first part of your immune system that starts doing something are the helper T cells. They release a special hormone that tells the body that they're under attack, and orders the spleen, bone marrow, and lymph nodes to create natural killer cells and virgin B cells. Now that the body knows it's under attack, all of the white blood cells that were under patrol around the blood goes rushing to the place where the hormones was released. Now the neutrophils are now the second part of your immune system that gets there are the neutrophils. Neutrophils are extremely deadly, so deadly that they commit suicide after 3 days of fighting, so it does not cause the body too much damage. The way to kill is by releasing toxins that both kill the parasite and healthy cells, like the red blood cells, which in this case is a good thing, seeing that there is a very high chance that the red blood cells are affected by the merozoites. Then the dendritic cells do not kill the merozoites. They try to find a merozoid that was killed by a neutrophil and take it to the closest bone marrow, spleen, or lymph node. And then they await for the natural killer cells and the virgin B cells to be made, which takes about 10 to 12 days. If the dendritic cells cannot get a sample, then the killer cells swallow the membranes, swallow the merozoites, and then kill them by tearing them apart, and then placing it in its receptors as a sample, like the dendritic cell would do. If that doesn't work, then the macrophages swallow the merozoid and use enzymes to dissolve the merozoid, and then give the killed merozoid to the dendritic cell, so the dendritic cell can use it as a sample. Once the virgin B cells are made, the sample of the merozoids are given to them, which turn it into a B cell. They start reproducing like crazy, which then some turn into memory cells. Then the cells start making antibodies. They work so hard to make antibodies that they can die from overwork in about 6 hours. This is where the helper T cells come into a role again. They tell the B cells to keep on making antibodies. The other cell that were made is in the spleen, the bone marrow, and the lymph nodes. Those are natural killer T cells. Then, once the natural killer T cells are trained, are trained, everything is released at the same time. The antibodies and the natural killer cells. Natural T killer cells. At this point, the body is getting spammed with messages saying that they're under attack. Once the antibodies see a Merozoid, they clip onto it because they have the same receptors as the Merozoids, making the Merozoid not able to move. And an easy kill for the natural killer cells because they to add the antibodies back fit perfectly to the receptors of the natural killer T cells. At this point, the malaria has reproduced so much that these types of guns are just not strong enough. It's too late, and it's too late. And about every single day, they almost double in amounts. At this point, the chances of you dying are about 80 to 90% are extremely high, and you die for many reasons. Most common way to die from malaria is because, don't forget, there's piles and piles of red blood cells that are getting killed. So all of the toxins from the red blood cells are getting piled up. So you basically die from intoxication. And the second way is basically the same thing, but don't forget, one of the jobs of the red blood cells is to carry carbon dioxide that is released from the mitochondria when it's trying to create ADP. So if the red blood cells are getting killed, then the carbon dioxide is going to pile up, and your body is going to die. Now, if you are lucky enough to survive from malaria or get a malaria vaccine, then the memory cells, which are made when the B cells are reproducing, then the helper T cells release the hormone saying that they're under attack from malaria. Instead of taking 10 to 12 days to make the lymphocytes, they're just made under 2 to 3 days, making the counterattack much easier to kill because malaria is now very, very, very low in numbers. And that's it.